Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Baseball Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you today. First, we'll be covering some Yankees news and rumors. They've been in the news recently with a lot of different stuff going on, so we'll talk about it. After that, we'll be talking about young players getting extensions, who I think could be candidates for each team, and why. And lastly, we'll be talking about news around the league, just general stories that I wanted to talk about, and what's going on in general. So now, before we do that, I would like to ask you to please like and follow the show. We get a number of questions from viewers that do come in during the show, so to ensure that your question gets read on the air, I do ask that you use the tips and donation link you see on your screen over there, streamelements.com/GSMC Sports Network /tip. It really does mean a lot, and it really does help. So thank you so much for that. So, without further ado, let's get into our first segment here. And our first segment is going to be the Yankees. Everyone's favorite team. Everyone loves the Yankees, don't they? So they've been in the news recently with a lot of different stuff going on, a lot of different rumors. So, we're going to talk about it. So the first thing we're going to be talking about is who else other than Blake Snell. Now, we all know the story with Blake Snell, what's going on with him right now. He is the reigning Cy Young winner, a two-time Cy Young winner, in fact, and he is still out on the market when spring training games start tomorrow, which I would say is very unprecedented in the game of baseball and probably other sports as well. Imagine if an MVP or someone like that was still on the free agent market for basketball. You couldn't. It's not going to happen. But it does with baseball because our off seasons are kind of interesting, to say the least. So Blake Snell has been rumored with the Yankees for a little while now. It started a few months ago when the Yankees were very interested in getting some pitching after trading a lot of pitching depth to get Juan Soto. It was rumored that they offered him a $150 million contract, which he immediately rebuffed. And since then, there's not been much news about Blake Snell, excluding this week. So the Yankees have been mentioned again with him in a lot of rumors. He's kind of whenever someone mentions suitors for Blake Snell or mentioning where could Blake Snell go, the Yankees have consistently been mentioned for a good amount of reasons as well. They have a great team, of course. They need another pitcher. He's former teammates with Juan Soto just last year. He's friends with Aaron Judge, which we know of. And with Blake Snell's market somewhat falling, or what it seems to be falling, the Yankees have made a lot of sense because of this. And a lot of rumors have been made about could he go there for a short-term deal with a lot of AAV, hit the market on either next year or the year after, something like that. Get his bag now, and hopefully he reaffirms his value and shows people, okay, I'm not a fluke. I've done this before. I'm going to do it again, and I'm a great pitcher who you should make whom you should make the ace of your rotation. So Blake Snell has been mentioned with the Yankees, like I said, for a little while now. It makes sense. I'm not sure. I don't believe he's going to sign with the Yankees, as much as there have been rumors about how the Yankees have offers on the table and they want to sign him short term. I just don't see it as logistically possible, mainly for the reason of the salary cap and just kind of what goes on with that. So Ken Rosenthal pointed out in his podcast from Fair Territory that if the Yankees were to sign Blake Snell to a one-year, $40 million deal, just as an example, which I guess is possible right now, it would really be a one-year, $80 million deal because of where they are with the salary cap and what goes on with the Cohen tax. So that, to me, does not seem very plausible if you're a Yankees fan and looking to live in the realm of reality. Now, again, Blake Snell could say, okay, you know what, I'm not going to get the money I want, so let me take a one-year deal, very low AAV, with a lot of incentives, go to a team like the Yankees who's obviously trying to be a World Series contender. So I think that could make some sense here. But I'm just not sure about Blake Snell and the Yankees, how much sense it makes. It's kind of an iffy fit, kind of a fit that a lot of people want to be true because it would make the team a lot better. We got the market moving, but I just don't see it as very plausible or going to happen. Aaron Judge also said he is expecting more moves. Yankees insider Andy Martino, who is one of the best in the business when it comes to New York sports, also agreed with that and seconded it and kind of said in a nice way they're looking for pitching and they would like some pitching. So obviously Snow fits that category as he's still out in the free agent market. The Yankees need pitching and he has a connection to a good amount of players on the team. So again, I think it makes sense on paper, but when you dive deeper into it, going to the logistics of the thing, going into the salary cap, the money, what's going on with that, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. It's probably not going to happen, but it's a nice rumor. It gets it gets the baseball market moving right now. It gets something to talk about, which is good for people like me because the market's pretty slow right now. The sport's pretty slow right now, so we're trying to find some things to talk about. So yeah, I mean, if we're looking at other candidates for the Yankees to sign to get pitching, I think you'd have to look first at Jordan Montgomery. Obviously, Jordan Montgomery did play for the Yankees. He is a former Yankee. There have been some rumors that the Yankees share a mutual interest with Montgomery and bringing him back. So obviously Montgomery, he was traded from the Yankees, kind of blindsided in the middle of the season when he was a big part of their rotation, and there was a lot of rumors that were presumably true that Montgomery then kind of was a little pissed off at the organization because they traded him in the middle of the season with little warning, and that his wife had started a job that day at a hospital in New York, and the day he got traded. So then they had to kind of reroute their entire life, and kind of he was a little mad at the Yankees organization. I don't think that's entirely such a bad thing to be mad about. I would be pretty mad if I was Jordan Montgomery as well. So I think you have to look at it that way as well, kind of squashing the beef here a little bit with the two parties. But from everything that's been rumored, it apparently has happened that Jordan Montgomery is open to going back to the Yankees if they would like him. It's kind of the same thing with the Snell thing, though. Do they have the money and do they have the ability to get Montgomery on the team because of how much money they've spent, because of where they are with the luxury tax and salary cap and all things going on with that? So I'm not sure personally. I think Montgomery, is a really good fit. Just again, it's kind of the same thing with Snell. It just brings legitimacy to that rotation, brings a level of depth they didn't have before. Again, the Yankees have a great rotation. Garrett Cole, bona fide ace, Cy Young last year, probably the best pitcher in baseball. But after that, you have a good amount of question marks. I'd probably say everyone in that rotation is a question mark after Cole. You have Carlos Rodon, who, don't get me started with how much of a question mark he is. I mean, injury prone last year, and when he did pitch, he wasn't very good. He had some beef with the fans, and it's not just coming out of nowhere with these injuries for Rodon. He's had some injuries back in his Chicago days when he wasn't as good as he is now. You did sign him to a 7-year contract, so obviously you're hoping that he can rebound and become the guy you paid for, but I don't know right now, so there's question marks with him. You have Marcus Stroman, who was injured the second half of last year. When he did pitch, was really, really bad, one of the worst pitchers in baseball in the second half last year, so you have to look at that as well. You have Nestor Cortez, who was hurt to end the year last year. Apparently in camp he's been doing much better. He apparently struck out Juan Soto a couple of times, which is, I'd say, good news for Yankees. Maybe for Cortez, not for guys who want Soto to succeed, but I'm fairly positive Soto will be fine. You have Clark Schmidt, Clayton Beeter, guys like that trying to fill in the 5 spot right now. Fine players, but they're young, they're prospects. They still need a little bit of fine-tuning, most likely. You have Luke Weaver, who's like the 6-man swingman type person right now for them. He's fine, but again, he's just fine. He's okay. He's fine depth. So bringing a guy like Snell or Montgomery in, or just another pitcher, maybe even trade for a guy like Shane Bieber, who was mentioned earlier in the offseason, or one of the Marlins guys like Jesus Luzardo, who would cost a ton, Edward Cabrera, who maybe wouldn't cost as much, to just bring another level of arm to that rotation and bring some more depth to that rotation as well. So I think that's possible, and I think the Yankees do need more pitching, but I'm not sure if Snell or Monty are the guys they're going to get, because they cost a good amount of money, because they are free agents who have a good track record with pedigree. And with where the Yankees are in the salary cap, with at relation to the Cohen tax as well, it just doesn't make a lot of financial sense for them, and just sense in general. So I would look at that as probably a no. Again, Montgomery, we don't really know where Monty's going to go right now. I thought he was for sure going back to the Rangers, but the reports came out that is unlikely. So maybe if his market really falls, him and the Yankees will come to a mutual decision that, okay, everything's in the past. We both need each other right now, and we'll sign and we'll try to win a World Series, which I definitely think is possible. But I just don't know what the Yankees' salary cap situation right now and what's going on with that. I don't know how it's going to work. So next, we're going to be shifting away a little bit from pitching and just general Yankees news. So we have Gleyber Torres. So Gleyber Torres talked about today to the media that he would like to be a Yankee for life. He wants an extension. He wants to play for the Yankees forever. all that stuff, which is great news for the Yankees fans, I'd say. Gleyber Torres is a really good player. Any team would be lucky to have him. So I'm just going to look at, does it make sense for the Yankees to extend him? Will they, and all that? So maybe I'm being overdramatic here, but I don't think he'll be extended, and I don't think he'll be a Yankee next year. I just don't think it makes a lot of sense when looking at the future of the Yankees. He's a very good player. I want to make that very clear. Gleyber Torres is a very good player. Any team would benefit from having him. But you look at the Yankees right now; they have a lot of middle infield prospects. Even when trading away a guy like Trey Sweeney to the Dodgers, you have someone like Oswald Peraza, like Jorbit Vivas, like Roderick Arias, and you of course have Volpe manning short for however long he's going to be there. For Yankees fans, I'm sure for their sake, they hope it's a long, long time. We'll talk more about Volpe later in the show, actually. So stay tuned for that. So yeah, they have a lot of middle infield prospects. Yes, some of them like Vivas and Arias, they're going to be up later. They probably won't be up till 2025 at the absolute earliest. 2026 probably more likely. But you have to look at these things when you're extending a player like Gleyber, who is relatively young, to maybe a 4 or 5 year deal, or maybe even a 6. So because he is young and because he is a good player. Oswald Peraza, they were kind of hesitant to give him the third base job this offseason, which is maybe a question mark for me about his long-term future and how good he really is, because if his own team doesn't really like him, what does that really say about him? But you still need to give him a chance. I could see him I could see him setting in perfectly as Gleyber's replacement next year. So you look at that, and just with the bulk of middle infield prospects they have. Now, I want to make it clear that having middle infield prospects, they are the most athletic type of players. So you sign a lot of middle infield prospects, you trade for them because they can shift positions if necessary. So that is always possible. But as of right now, I think Gleyber coming back with the depth they have in that farm system and organization doesn't make a ton of sense. And looking over next year, you have someone who's a big free agent, and his name's Juan Soto. So I don't know how if the Yankees want to have a serious chance at re-signing Juan Soto, which I think they want to. I mean, I don't know what Yankees fan wouldn't want to re-sign Juan Soto. And believe me, they're going to have to, because it's going to be a big race for him. I'm already seeing reports about a New York battle to get Juan Soto, which would be very exciting for baseball. So that, and if the Yankees want to get Soto, believe me, they'll have to dish out the big bucks. I'm thinking $600 million, and I think it could be more if you factor in a bidding war with Steinbrenner and Cohen. So I think you kind of have to do one of the either if you're next offseason with the Yankees, if you're with Soto and Gleyber. And let's say you sign Soto. Let's say you don't sign Soto. Let's say you don't sign Gleyber as well. You still need pitching next year. There's a lot of good pitchers on the market. You have Corbin Burns. You have Max Fried. You have other guys as well. You need a legitimate number 2 with the Yankees, assuming Rodon still kind of struggles, and Stroman. We don't know how it's going to go with that. So I think it doesn't make a lot of sense for the Yankees to extend Torres right now, just with the uncertainty of the organization, and what's going on with them, and just the depth they have of positions in the farm and what's going on with their future. So I wouldn't look towards an extension right now for the Yankees and Gleyber Torres. It's very nice Torres wants to stay as a Yankee for his entire career. It's very nice that he said that publicly. And you always want players like that in your team. You always want an organization who is able to convince players of that and make them feel at home. But it is a business at the end of the day. And for me, Gleyber Torres going back to signing an extension with the Yankees right now just doesn't make a ton of sense. Again, he could always re-sign in the offseason. I think that's very likely, very possible, very plausible. But I just don't think right now is the right time for the Yankees, and I think a lot of Yankees fans would agree with that. He's a fan favorite. He's a great player. Seems to be a really nice guy, great clubhouse presence. But baseball is a business, and I don't think it makes much sense right now for the Yankees to bring back Gleyber and kind of make him a big part of that core going forward, even though he is a good player. So just to recap a tiny bit, we talked about the Yankees and their pitching recruits, how they're trying to get Blake Snell, maybe even a Jordan Montgomery, how Aaron Judge said he's expecting more moves, and you always want to make sure Judge is happy with the contract you gave him. Gleyber Torres and his Yankees extension talks, how he wants to be a Yankee for life and all that. So, and how I talked about it. So, yeah, just what's going on with the Yankees right now. I thought there was a lot going on with them, actually, surprisingly. So I just wanted to talk about it and give my 2 cents. So that was the end of the first segment. Before we're going to take a little break here. But before that, we're going to show you our second segment, which is going to be young AL player extension candidates. just younger players on each team in the American League that I think could be extension candidates. We'll talk about it further in the next segment and why I decided to talk about this. But first, we'll take a break. So here you go, and see you on the other side. Thanks.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. Some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast. Before we go to segment 2, I would like to ask you to please, again, like the show, follow the show, use the Tip and Donations link. It really does help me. It really does help the show. StreamElements.com/GSMC Sports Network /tip. It really would mean a lot, and it really does help us. So thank you in advance so much for that. Next, we're going to be talking about our second segment, and I teased it a little bit before we went to break, but it is young player extension candidates, and first in the American League, and then we'll move to the National League after. So the reason I wanted to talk about this is we've seen it as a big trend in baseball recently, younger players getting extensions that buy out their arbitration years and maybe 1 or 2 years of free agency as well. We've seen it with Bobby Witt Jr. this year. We saw it with Julio Rodriguez last year, Corbin Carroll, even guys like, Spencer Strider, Michael Harris, going back a long time, Ronald Acuna Jr. And today we had some rumors about Brian Bayo from the Red Sox potentially getting an extension. We had some rumors about Francisco Alvarez. That would prove false, unfortunately, for me. I would love that to get done as a Mets fan. But so I just wanted to talk about it because there was some stuff going on with that, and spring training is the time to get extensions done for any player, young or old. You've seen it with guys like Zach Wheeler as well, who've mentioned it. So, let's just get straight into it and mention the guys I want to talk about here. So, first, we're starting off with the New York Yankees. Who else? And we're going to talk about the obvious choice here, Anthony Volpe. Anthony Volpe was one of the top prospects in baseball for a long time. Was kind of heralded as the second coming to Derek Jeter at the shortstop position. Now, I don't know if he's going to be that good as a guy who grew up watching Jeter and is my favorite player of all time, but he's still a good player. His glove is really, really fantastic. If he can get his hitting to a good amount above average, he's going to be a superstar in this league, and I think it makes a lot of sense for the Yankees to lock him up early. I think his floor as a player is really, really good because of the defense. He's from Jersey, grew up a Yankees fan, so I think that would help with your case of getting to extend him. So I think that makes a lot of sense. I think he's definitely a extension candidate for the Yankees right now. Next, the man I talked about before, Brian Bayo from the Red Sox. Bayo has shown flashes of being a future ace for Boston, has electric stuff, is an electric player, is very young, has shown a lot of flashes, and was a top prospect before this. He didn't have the greatest season the last year, but it was still good. Having a 4.24 ERA in the AL East isn't something to cough at, especially as a young player who's still trying to find his way. So I definitely think he's a future ace for the Red Sox, and I would say that it makes a lot of sense to extend him. You don't really extend pitchers usually just because of the wear and tear on arms, how much injuries they usually have, but I think it makes sense to lock him in, get some, start building specific parts of that young core before guys like Roman Anthony, like Cedeno Rafaela, like Marcelo Mayer, like Kyle Teal come up and kind of have a building block to build around them in a starting pitcher like Bayo. I also made a short on it, so check that out on the channel. The Blue Jays, not many options here. I went with Davis Schneider. I don't really think they should extend him, but he is the best candidate. The Jays kind of have a lot of middle-aged players, no real young stars. I could have went with Ricky Tiedemann, but again, I'm not a big fan of extending young pitchers, especially ones that haven't been up to the major leagues. So, yeah, he had a very good season last year, of course. Was one of the better hitters in baseball when he came up. Did get a bit lucky, but is still a good player, I think. So maybe they will extend him to a contract if they believe his run last year was legit. I doubt it, but again, I think he's the most likely one if you had to look at something for the Blue Jays. Next, Tampa, Junior Camarino. Yeah, so he is one of the top prospects in baseball for the Rays. He came up a few games this year, didn't do that great, but again, it was a cup of coffee. We're not going to judge off that. I think it will make a lot of sense for the Rays to extend him. He's going to be a monster hitter, a monster player in this league. He's going to be a superstar for the Rays, adding into that core with Paredes, with Rosarena, other guys as well, including the pitchers that are hurt, like McClanahan, when he comes back. So it makes a lot of sense for them to do this now. So I think he's going to be really good, and I think when you have a small market team like the Rays, locking up your young superstars early is important. Obviously, they did it before, and they might have some PTSD from that with Wander Franco. But I don't really think it's fair to judge every single young player off what Wander Franco did, or what is accused of, sorry. That's kind of a extreme scenario that is not fair to just penalize all other young players with. I think it's an outlier, and I think the Rays are smarter to do that. I think the Rays are smarter than to do that. And I think getting Camarino and extending him for a while can get you another face of the franchise after Wander's probably gone for a little while. The Orioles, easy one. Adley Rutschman, one of the best catchers in baseball. Young, only played 2 years. I also want to add, I forgot to mention this before, for me a young player is someone who has played 2 years or less. There might be some outliers with that, but we'll get to them if it happens. So yeah, going back to Adley, sorry about that. I forgot to mention at the start. I should have. Adley, yeah, I mean, he's one of the better catchers in baseball. Face of the franchise of the Orioles already, even with all the other young players they have. This is a relatively easy scenario. I think they're going to extend him, actually. I think new management's going to make that a priority, as they should. And I think it makes a lot of sense. He is a superstar. He is the face of Baltimore baseball. And he is really, really good. Going to the AL Central now, we have the Guardians. We have Tanner Bybee. Tanner Bybee was a guy I didn't really have on my radar going into 2023, but surprised me a lot and was very, very good. Had a great season, under 3 ERA with the Guardians. Became one of their better pitchers, even in a team with a lot of good young pitchers. So I think it'll make a lot of sense for the Guardians to maybe lock him up, get something to build around with that core. When the Guardians kind of right now are in kind of a little awkward period of not really contending, but aren't really being really bad. They did get this second overall pick in the draft, so good for them, I guess. I don't know how they did it. I think it was the first overall pick, actually, sorry. So they got lucky in the lottery, so that could help with that. But, yeah, I think extending Bybee makes sense, make him a face of that franchise, and, yeah, he's a really good player and a really good pitcher. I'm not a fan of extending pitchers, as I said before, because of just the wear and tear on the arm, but Bybee's really good, and and I think he's the best candidate to receive an extension out of the young players on the Guardians roster. Next, White Sox. We're going to go with a player who I mentioned last episode and also has not played in the MLB yet, and that is Colson Montgomery. Now, you might be looking at me like, why the hell would a prospect get a huge contract? Well, we've seen it, and we've seen it with their AL Central counterpart, the Tigers. They just did it with Colt Keith a few weeks ago. Julio Rodriguez got it. Corbin Carroll got it. So, young players coming up as prospects, even though they haven't played. We just saw it with Jackson Chourio as well. I don't know, I forgot that example. But young players coming up who are top prospects for these mid-market teams, even though they do play in Chicago, they don't act like a big market team because they're run by Jerry Rosendorf. So I think it makes a lot of sense to extend him before he gets to the big leagues. He's going to be up this year. Get him locked up quickly. Get another face of the franchise with him and Luis Robert. Make that your dynamic duo and start building for the future, which you're doing right now, and do it even better. So, next, Riley Green for the Tigers. Now, you may be surprised I didn't go with Spencer Torkelson here, as he was heralded as a future star, as a guy who could be a big part of the Tigers' future, the first overall pick, but he hasn't shown me enough to where I'd be comfortable giving him a huge extension. I still think he's going to be a good player in the future, but as of right now, I don't think so. I mean, as of right now, he hasn't shown it. Riley Green has. He's been a great player, really broken out with the Tigers, really just become great and shown he's their future center fielder. So I think it makes a lot of sense right now to extend him if you were going to extend anyone, if you are the Tigers. Next, we have the Twins. To me, it's Eduardo Julian. He broke out last year kind of out of nowhere. He hit really, really well, played a good second base, kind of added to that underrated young Twins core, as I mentioned yesterday. With the trade of Jorge Polanco, he's definitely going to be a starter now. Probably shifts over to first base with that great infield with him, Brooks Lee, Carlos Correa, Royce Lewis. So, yeah, I think getting him locked up long-term if you're a team that plays in Minnesota is a really good idea. Just because, again, you're going to see this, but they're not as big of a market. So it does make a lot of sense for me to do that. Next, the Royals, Vinny Pasquantino. Vinny Pasquantino is really, really good. I think he's the DH/first baseman of the future for that Royals team that's trying to compete this year, obviously, with the moves they've made. Obviously, they just extended Bobby Witt. So getting another guy in there to kind of have two players to build around, like Pasquantino, it makes sense. And I think he's a really good player who's going to hit the ball really, really good in his career. And I think getting him extended now would make a ton of sense for the Royals and both Pasquantino as well, who voices how happy he is with the Royals on his social media very often. He is a Jets fan, though, so I apologize. I'm sure he's looking for better days right now. Unnecessary straight Jets fan, sorry. So next we're going to move to the AL West, finally, and we have the Astros going to start off with, and that to me is Yainer Diaz. Diaz was the backup catcher last year to Martin Maldonado, to a lot of fans' dismay. They thought he should have started over Martin Maldonado, but Dusty Baker wouldn't budge. He should have started over Martin Maldonado. I agree with that wholeheartedly, but that's a different conversation. With Martin leaving for the White Sox, Yainer is going to be the starting catcher every day. He's a great hitter, needs to work on the defense a little bit like most catchers, most young catchers, but he's still really good, hits the ball really well, and I think he's going to be part of that evolving core for the Astros with players like Bregman, like Kyle Tucker. We don't know what their future is, but getting a guy like Yainer Diaz locked up, I think will make a lot of sense to make sure you have him. Dana Brown's done it already with Christian Javier and said he's exploring it with other players, so maybe Yainer Diaz could be it. I chose him over Jeremy Pena, as Pena was inconsistent last year with the bat, and I think Diaz might be a better player in the future. Angels, Zach Neto. Zach Neto came up almost immediately after getting drafted, was a great shortstop for the Angels, played very, very well. I think he's going to be the franchise shortstop in Anaheim for a long, long time. He's a really good player, and I'm excited to see what he does. So, yeah, I definitely think if you're the Angels, you should try to get Zach Neto locked up. It makes a lot of sense. With Ohtani gone and you don't know what the future of Trout and Rendon are, you need another face of that franchise, another guy to build around, and Zach Neto could be that guy if he keeps playing like he is. So this would make a lot of sense to me. Next, we have the A's. Not many choices for the A's. They're not a great team, as we know. I went with Esteury Ruiz. Ruiz is not a great player. He's okay. He steals a lot of bases, had 60 last year. So maybe a little Ricky Henderson without the other things Ricky Henderson brought. You know, it is the A's, so you have to make the Ricky Henderson comparison when you're talking about Oakland. So I may be getting him to a small-term deal would be nice. He's a good player, just not a great one. I don't know how much more you're going to get out of him. But again, the A's don't have a great future, don't have a great core right now. So there's no one else really to mention here. So I had to settle with him. He's not a bad player, just not a great one. So next we have Seattle. I have George Kirby for this. This was a pretty easy decision. With Julio Rodriguez already locked up, it was pretty easy to pick one of the young pitchers, and I think the best one here is George Kirby. He's a future ace, in my opinion, going to be a big part of that Mariners future that tries to finally win the World Series with Julio there as well. So, yeah, I think he's great. I think getting him locked up would be great. Obviously, young pitchers You don't really know how they're going to fare in the future because of arm and fatigue and injury and all that. But I think Kirby is an exception because he's really, really good. I would look to extend him right now as fast as you can. The Mariners have done it before with Julio, have a history of doing it, so I think it would make a lot of sense. Getting a successor to Felix Hernandez, ace status in Seattle. I think George Kirby can be that and is that. And finally, ending off with the World Series champion Rangers. Evan Carter, this is a pretty easy decision. He was a top prospect in the league, came up at the end of the year, was very impactful during the playoffs, showed why he was a top prospect. He was so good. Really, really good. Is a future of Texas. Is a great hitter, going to be a great player in Texas for a long time. And I think if you extend him, you have one less contract to worry about in the future, especially with guys like Seager and Semien on the books for a long, long time. So I think extending Evan Carter makes a lot of sense for Texas, and I think it's something they should explore. That's all the teams here for the AL. We're going to take a break here, but before that, we're going to talk about NL candidates for what I just talked about in the next segment. So, excited to talk about that, and we'll see you after that. So, thanks.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our third segment, and it's going to be part of what we did last segment, which is one young player on each team I think should be an extension candidate. We've seen it as a trend in baseball, and I think these players could be it for their teams and be extended and be part of a big future for them. We're going to start off with the Mets. And I talked about it before, Francisco Alvarez. This is the easy choice. There were some extension rumors yesterday from Hector Gomez about him being extended and that he was close to it. If you know anything about the baseball social media sphere and pay attention to people, Hector Gomez is extremely hit or miss, more hit than miss. But when he does hit, it's on something big. So we thought maybe it's possible. But Andy Martino, who I also mentioned before, one of the better guys for New York sports, insider information, talked about how it's not happening right now, but both sides have interest, and it's something that could happen in the future. So I think extending Alvarez makes a ton of sense for the Mets. He's obviously he's a future star. He's a future face of the organization. The Mets have a lot of young players coming up in this young core that they got mostly from the deadline last year with all the trades they made. And I think Alvarez should be at the forefront of that, being the first real superstar catcher the Mets have had since Mike Piazza. He's shown flashes of being great, and I think extending him would make a lot of sense. He said he's open to an extension as well. He seems to love being a Met, love New York spotlight, so extending Alvarez makes a ton of sense for the Mets, and I think it would be a really wise decision for new president of baseball operations, David Stearns. Next, we're going to talk about the Phillies here. I have Johan Rojas. Rojas is interesting. He kind of came out of nowhere last year and took the Phillies starting center fielder job and ran with it. Had a really great season, played great defense, was a pretty good hitter, and brought an element to center field for the Phillies that hasn't been there in a little while now, kind of plugging and playing defensive first guys. And I think getting Rojas is really important to them, and keeping him long-term should also be really important. Extending him now, you would ensure that he's going to be your center fielder for the long term. You make sure that you have a guy in center field there for a little while. Make sure that he is your guy and that he is there for a good amount of time and that you believe in him as well. And you don't think it was just a one-year fluke. Marlins, this one's also easy. Yuri Perez. Yuri Perez was one of the top starting pitcher prospects in baseball for a little while. He is so good. He's so good. And I think the Marlins extending him would make a ton of sense with where they are. They need to extend their young stars and being in a small market. Yuri is going to be a future superstar, future ace for the Marlins. They have a good amount of aces on that pitching staff, even one that's hurt like Alcantara. But I think Yuri Perez is so good, And I think extending him right now would just make a ton of sense for the Marlins and what they're trying to do. The Braves. This was really hard to pick because basically all their young players they've extended already. Ronald Acuna, Ozzie Albies, Michael Harris, Spencer Strider, Matt Olson, Sean Murphy. Like, they've extended all of their team. Even Acuna, who I didn't mention for some reason. We know this as baseball fans. But I think looking to the pitching side now, where they've only extended one guy, which is Spencer Strider, I think A.J. Smith-Shawver could be an interesting extension candidate. He's a really good pitcher, factors into the future of that Braves pitching staff that might look a lot different next year with Max Fried and Charlie Morton probably being gone. You extend him, make him a long-term piece of that pitching staff, get him a spot, work with him, and I think it would make a lot of sense for the Braves to extend A.J. Smith-Shawver and make him a long-term part of that future as well. Next, we have the Nationals. This might be a little crazy. You might call me insane for this, but I think it's Dylan Cruz. Dylan Cruz is so good. He's so good. He was second overall pick last year for a reason. He's going to be an insane hitter right off the gate. He's going to come up very early with the Nationals this year. I'd probably say May or June. Maybe I'm reaching, but I think he's so good. He's going to be a great player, going to hit right away, and I think the Nationals extending him would be a very wise decision. They have a lot of good young players, but they're looking for a guy who can really build around, be that superstar, be their Bryce Harper, be their Juan Soto. Both guys are gone now, obviously, so they need a new one. Why not add another outfielder? Dylan Cruz. He's so good. They picked him at 2 for a reason. He was a top prospect for a long time for a reason. He's a great player, and I think makes a lot of sense as an extension candidate for the Nationals. Next, we're going to go on to the Central now. I'm going to move to the Pirates, and I think an extension candidate here is Henry Davis. Henry Davis was the first overall pick for the Pirates. He's very good. He's a very good hitter. I think is one of the future stars of that young Pirates team. I don't know if he's going to stick a catcher long term, but even if he doesn't, he's still a really good hitter. He's going to be a really good player wherever he does play, just because of that hitting ability. I think he could mold into a catcher, a really good defensive one, but it will take some time, as it will for all young players, especially catchers with how hard that position is. I think it makes a lot of sense. They do have Endy Rodriguez there, but he's hurt. And if I'm picking between Endy and I'm picking between Henry, I'm going Henry Davis all the time. I think he's a great player, a great hitter, and going to be a future star for the Pirates. Speaking of another great young hitter, let's go to the Cardinals, and we have Jordan Walker. Jordan Walker is great. He's a great hitter. He's a top prospect in baseball for a long time for a reason. Didn't have the best season last year, but I think you can, if you find him a position he can learn defense at and just focus on hitting, it would be great. I think he's more of a DH first base type long term, just because he isn't a great fielder. I would have traded Paul Goldschmidt actually in the deadline or in the offseason, open up a spot for Jordan Walker and specifically all those other young players as well. You have just so many young hitters, and you're kind of in a retool phase right now with where the pitching's at. So I think moving Goldschmidt would have made sense, and moving Walker there, but that's a different conversation for a different day. Yeah, I think extending Jordan Walker, making him a part of that core for a long time would make a ton of sense and would be really nice for the Cardinals and their fans who don't have much positive things going on right now. I don't know. I don't think they're going to be very good this year, but we never know. The Brewers. I'm going to go William Contreras here. Obviously was acquired in a big trade with the Braves in the offseason. Was an all-star with the Braves, then got traded to the Brewers. Played very, very well, hit very, very well. Has shown to be their catcher of the future. I think is going to be a future star for the Brewers. I think extending him would make a lot of sense for this young team. Getting him in the core of guys like Jackson Chourio, who was already extended, Sal Frelick, other guys as well. I think it makes a ton of sense for the Brewers to extend Contreras, to make him a part of their long-term future. And it's for a reason. He's really, really good. He's a really good hitter, a really great catcher, a really great player. So I think it makes a lot of sense. Next, we have the Reds. I'm going to go with one of their millions of young infielders here, and I'm going to go with Matt McLain. Matt McLain was great last year. He was great. First-round pick. Came up, just hit the ball. Had an amazing season. It's probably going to be the shortstop of the future for the Reds, and extending him now with, you're not in the biggest market in Cincinnati. You always have to wonder about your young players wanting to go to a different market, wanting to play somewhere else just because of the money and how smaller of a market Ohio is. Someone who's a fan of some Ohio teams, I understand that as well. Not just being biased because I'm from New York. So I think it makes a lot of sense for the Reds to extend McClain, make him a part of that long-term future immediately, and get him as one of the faces of your franchise. Build around him with guys like Novelli Marte, with Ellie De La Cruz, other guys as well. So the Cubs, I talked about him a few times now in the last few episodes, and it's because I love him. I think he's amazing, and I think he's one of the better prospects in baseball and going to be one of the better center fielders in baseball. We're talking about the Cubs. You know who I'm talking about. It's Pico Armstrong. PCA is going to be such an amazing fielder right off the bat. And I think once he gets his hitting down, once he becomes an above-average hitter, he's going to become an amazing player in the league. You do have some questions with the bat, which is, you do have to look out for, but I think those are fixable. I think he's going to be a future star for the Cubs, and if I'm the Cubs, I'm extending him right now before he gets too expensive. Market him as a big part of your future. Give Craig Counsell a franchise guy right away. Add him in with Dansby Swanson, Justin Steele, other parts of that core. And I think it makes a lot of sense if the Cubs were to extend Pico Armstrong and look forward and look towards to do it right now. So, yeah. Moving on to the last division here, the NL West. We're going to talk about the reigning NL champions, the Arizona Diamondbacks. I think Jordan Lawler is their extension candidate. He is probably not going to start the year in the big leagues, but I think once he does, you probably give him a contract extension. He's a top pick for a reason in the draft. He's a really good player, really good shortstop. He's probably going to stick there long term as well, which is always important. Hits the ball really well, really good defender, nice speed, good athlete. Makes just a ton of sense for the D-backs to get him as part of the long-term core. Him, Corbin Carroll, the other guys they have as well. Corbin Carroll, of course, already being extended. So I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think it's something the D-backs should explore if they want to keep this core around for as long as possible, because it's going to get expensive at some point whenever your young guys hit free agency, which we've seen with some other teams as well. So maybe getting above that and trying to get ahead of that is very important for Arizona. The Dodgers, I'm going to go with James Outman here. Could have been some other candidates to go with, but I went with Outman. I think Outman is the center fielder of the future for the Dodgers. Had a great season last year being Cody Bellinger's replacement. Showed a great flash with the glove, being a really good hitter, tall lefty bat. I think he's going to be really good for the long term, and I think he's someone the Dodgers can build around, as they needed more young star players to build around. I think Outman to an extension with the Dodgers make a ton of sense, and is something the Dodgers should explore definitely. The Giants, Patrick Bailey. Patrick Bailey has proven to be a franchise catcher with the Giants. Kind of overshadowed his former second overall pick Joey Bart, who's looking like a bust right now. You extend Patrick Bailey. It is interesting with catchers because catchers don't necessarily age well because of just the stress they get on their knees. But if he's a really good player and you believe in him, maybe you view it as an outlier that he's someone who can be a long-term catcher. I think getting Bailey an extension, you would have him as your franchise catcher, the one to take over from Buster Posey's retirement. Makes a lot of sense. And I think it's something that should be explored by the Giants. Again, he is a catcher, so I understand if there are some questions about that. But it makes a lot of sense for the Giants to do that and have Patrick Bailey as their new franchise catcher, the successor to Mr. Buster Posey, one of the greatest of all time. The Padres. Again, I'm going to go with another shortstop who has not made the MLB yet, and that's Jackson Merrill. If I'm the Padres, I'm giving Jackson Merrill every single chance to make the MLB roster opening day that I can. He's one of the better prospects in baseball, probably top 5. He's so good. He's going to be really good for a long time. He's going to start in AAA. You give him an extension now. You lock him up. You did it with Tatis. I don't see why you can't do it with Merrill. He's going to be a future superstar in San Diego, and he's a really, really good player that from the Padres I'm looking to extend right now and following that trend of young players getting extensions. And finally, we'll end off with the Rockies. Nolan Jones, I guess. He's a really good player. He had a breakout season from Cleveland last year after a trade over. But it's the Rockies. We don't really know what they're going to do. They're very confusing. If you've watched my streams and videos the past few days, you know I'm not very fond of the Rockies and their organization. I don't really think they have a plan of what's going on there. So, but I think extending Nolan Jones, finally having some face the franchise there would be a good idea after the Chris Bryant situation was a bust. So it could make a ton of sense for the Rockies to extend Nolan Jones and make him a big part of that future. So that was segment 3. Talked about young National League extension candidates. We're going to take a break. Before we do that, we'll talk about segment 4 quickly, and that's going to be news around the league, just some general stories I wanted to touch on and see what's going on with them, and I think are really interesting to talk about. So we'll go to a break, and we'll see you on the other side and talk about it. So thanks, yeah. All right, we are back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our 4th and final segment, and that is going to be just some quick news around the league, what's going on there, and what are some stories I want to talk about. So the first story we're going to talk about is Eric Hosmer and what's going on there. Not what's going on there. Yeah, he retired. I think it's pretty clear what's going on there. Nothing, because he retired. So he is retired. He announced his retirement after 10 MLB seasons. He is going to start a media company and is starting a baseball podcast. Just a quick overview of Hosmer's career. He is a one-time All-Star. In the one All-Star game he did make, he won an MVP in it. He's a World Series champion with the Kansas City Royals, 4-time Gold Glove winner, and a Silver Slugger winner. When he was playing, he was considered one of the better defending first basemen in the game. Was a vacuum over there, and while first base defense isn't that important, having someone like Hosmer who could hit and do both was very important. So in his prime, he was a very good player for the Royals, and made them a lot better team, and was a big reason for winning the World Series, especially with his base running, with his how aggressive he was. He signed a big contract with the Padres. Did not work out very well. He's kind of famous on the internet for being a meme because we all thought he was going to hold up the Juan Soto trade after he declined to get traded to Washington for Soto. Instead, he got rerouted to Boston after. But yeah, it didn't work out very well with the Padres. Signed a big contract there, just not good. But he was always a well-respected player. It seemed like when he was traded from the Padres, a lot of players were kind of outraged. They were mad. Because he was a leader for them, a good guy. So game lost a good guy, but still a very nice career for Eric Hosmer. I'm just going to talk about this. I have to. I'm a Mets fan, so Hosmer ruining my 2015 was not very fun. He was one of the main reasons we lost that World Series in 5 in embarrassing fashion because of his base running. So was not a fun year for 10-year-old me, but I'm happy that he had a nice career, all bias aside, and I'm happy that he is retiring in a good shape, not injured, and had a nice career. So props to him. And next, we are going to talk about some pitching injuries here. And the first one is a big blow, I think, that went under the radar today, and that's Keaton Winn from the San Francisco Giants. Now, if you watch my videos, you know yesterday I mentioned Keaton Winn as a X factor for the Giants season. I'm very high on him. I think he has one of the better off-speed pitches in the game. I think his changeup is very, very deadly. I think he was going to have a breakout season this year. And you look at just what's going on with the Giants right now. You have Jordan Hicks, who's a big question mark. has a lot of potential, but it's a very low floor because you are changing a 103 mile per hour relief pitcher to a starting pitcher. You're stretching him out, so that's a very interesting scenario. What's going to go on with there? What's going to go on with that? Sorry, and how that's going to work. So you have Robbie Ray, who they traded for, who's going to be out the first half of the season, probably longer with his Tommy John recovery. And you have Alex Cobb, who also got injured and is probably also going to be out in the first half. Yeah, I think Keaton Winn was going to be a major part of that rotation. You had guys like Logan Webb, who was the bona fide ace. You had Jordan Hicks, who, assuming everything goes to plan, there would probably slot into the number 2 to start. You had Keaton Winn, probably going to be the number 3. I thought was going to be a very big part of that Giants team, Giants organization, and what they were going to do because of the pitching injuries. So I do think this is kind of a big blow for the Giants. He is hurt. He has elbow soreness. The MRI revealed no structural damage. We don't know what the long-term outlook is for him. But he could be ready for opening day, but we have to face reality. When pitchers get elbow soreness, it's never a good sign. Never. Even though MRI didn't reveal anything too serious. Elbow soreness or anything with your elbow when you're a pitcher is not good, ever. Nothing good can happen with that. So I would be a little cautious if I'm a Giants fan. But, I'm hoping for the best for him. I think he can have a breakout season, be a real big impact for the Giants and what goes on with that. So, let's just hope for Giants fans' sake and for Keaton Winn's sake that he is all good and he will be healthy. Next, we're going to talk about another pitching injury, as I said before. My Mets, Kodai Senga, he has arm fatigue already in spring training, and the Mets are going to reevaluate him. And he's talking to trainers, so we'll look for an update on that. This is not good. It's very worrying as a Mets fan, even though this is small. The Mets, we're just kind of just a cursed franchise. I mean, anything small that happens, it always gets blown up into bigger proportions, and it's never good. Senga had a lot of arm issues over in Japan, even though he was very good. He had some injury risks. A lot of people don't remember this, but his contract took a while to get finalized because he had an issue in the physical. The Mets did bring it down, and last year obviously went fine. He was one of the better pitchers in baseball. Has, I would say, undeniably the best pitch in baseball with the Ghost Fork. So, I'm hoping that's all good with Senga. It probably is. Maybe I'm overreacting, but as a Mets fan, you're kind of programmed to see the worst in things with baseball and the team. So I'm hoping he is okay. I'm hoping arm fatigue it's okay right now, and everything's all right with that. So, I'm really, really hopeful that it's not too big of a deal. And if it is, it's a huge blow to the Mets because their ace would then be Jose Quintana, which is not an ace you really want to have if you're trying to make the playoffs. So, I think it's something to watch in the next few days with Senga and what goes on with that. It's just a bad scenario for me. Next, we have Gary Sanchez and the Milwaukee Brewers. This was kind of a interesting thing with baseball. He signed a contract with the Brewers for 1 year, $7 million, around a week ago, and nothing ever happened since. He was not spotted in camp. Nothing about when the physical would be, or if the deal was getting finalized. But we know now what happened. He finally got the contract finalized. He is going to sign with the Brewers. Be some depth to bring some depth to the DH and catcher roles with the Brewers behind William Contreras. He had an elbow with his wrist. He had a problem with his wrist in the medical, and that's what held up the deal. The Brewers lowered the guarantees on it, and they just matched stuff around, but they still got him. They still wanted him as a player. They still thought he was important to bring in. So, this happens a good amount. We saw it with James Paxton with the Dodgers. As long as the injury isn't season-ending or anything like that, it's usually going to get done because if the team signs the player in the first place, that means they want him. And if they want him, it's going to take something very serious for them to completely back out. I mean, obviously the most recent case we have of this is 2 teams doing it with Carlos Correa, and that was obviously a big deal. We'll see how that ages in the future and see if the Mets and Giants were wrong and the Twins are correct, or vice versa. So next, we have something that's very interesting. Sixto Sanchez. Sixto Sanchez is kind of a forgotten name in baseball world. He was a big part of the JT Realmuto trade to the Phillies. Was a big-time prospect with the Phillies. They traded him to the Marlins for Realmuto. Was a top pitching prospect. Pitched great in 2020 with the Marlins. Had them get that surprise playoff run. But since then has kind of been a mystery. He's had some visa issues, some personal issues, injuries, and she showed up back in camp today. And he, to put it lightly, he looks very different. He's put on some pounds, we'll say. I think it's an interesting scenario what's going to go on with him. He doesn't look in shape. His fastball was pretty nice in camp, they said, but his secondary stuff was not very effective at all. So I don't think he's going to be the Sixto Sanchez we all remember that was really good, that showed a lot of potential. So, yeah, I just don't think he's a big part of the Marlins' future anymore. He could be a fine reliever if he gets maybe one secondary pitch down with that fastball and gets into shape, because he is not in shape right now at all. Anyone with two eyes can see that. So, yeah, I think something to watch when we go for spring training and for the future with the Marlins and what's going to go on with them, and how Sixto Sanchez rebounds and what his career looks like from now on. R.A. Dickey, finally. That's not a name we've talked about in a while, but he is in camp today with the Toronto Blue Jays. Before I start, I actually made a short on this for our YouTube channel, so if you want to check that out, just go to the shorts section of the channel when you're done watching this, and you can watch it, a little 40-second clip, but I'll expand on my thoughts about it further. So it's just a fun little thing. R.A. Dickey coming to the camp of his former team, the Blue Jays, former Cy Young winner, of course, one of the better knuckleballers in baseball history, probably up there with Phil Niekro as the best. So yeah, he apparently was teaching Blue Jays players today the knuckleball and how to work it, and I think it would be really fun if another player could learn the knuckleball and be effective with it and kind of have it as their main pitch. Knuckleballers in baseball are super fun. Mickey Giannis is probably the most recent example we have. We had Matt Waldron in the game today, who is a big knuckleballer, but we don't know how effective he's going to be because it's kind of not his main pitch. But he's still a good player, most likely. And he's kind of the only knuckleballer we have in the league right now. But R.A. Dickey coming to Jays camp, teaching some of the players, makes me hopeful for the knuckleball's future and what's going to go on with it. So, I think something really interesting to watch to see if Blue Jays players do get a knuckleball and they decide to make it a big part of their repertoire, and maybe it makes a comeback in baseball. I'm probably just overthinking all of this, most likely, but it's something to talk about. It's something nice, something cool. As a Mets fan, I love R.A. Dickey. It was great for us. Obviously, won us a Cy Young, got us Noah Syndergaard in a trade. So, always seemed like a cool guy. Overcame a lot of struggles in his personal life. And to be a major league pitcher, especially with, he didn't have a part of his body that you need for pitching. Look up his story. I believe this is 30 for 30 on him. It's very interesting, just what happened with him and his whole story of getting to the big leagues with the Rangers as a top draft pick, and then having to transition to be a knuckleballer because of the missing limb, which is insane. It's some rare condition. So, very interesting story and how he became a knuckleballer and just his career in general. So, just to recap a little bit for the news around the league. Eric Hosmer, nice career in baseball, is retiring. Is a former All-Star Game MVP, World Series champion, 4-time Gold Glove, Silver Slugger winner. Pain in the side of the Mets fans. So, nice career for him, and he is retiring. Keaton Winn, big blow to the Giants if this is serious with his injury, elbow soreness. Again, MRI revealed some good things, but got to always be careful with elbows for pitchers and players in general. Gary Sanchez finally getting his contract done with the Brewers. So that's nice for Brewers fans and himself, getting his payday. So good for him. Kodai Senga has some arm fatigue and is dealing with some issues right now in camp. Not good because of his injury past, but I'm hopeful that he can get past it and become a really good pitcher, even and get past the injury situation and lead the Mets to a playoff spot. Sixto Sanchez needs to get in shape again. We talked about this. He is not in shape right now. He needs to be. And R.A. Dickey, teaching some players the knuckleball. What else can you ask for? That's the American dream if you're a baseball player, getting taught the knuckleball by R.A. Dickey. That would be great. I'd love to learn knuckleball. And hopefully the knuckleball makes a return to baseball. We can only hope. So that was it for our show today. Thank you so much for watching. It really means a lot to us. You know, for watching, donating, commenting. Bush1G from Twitch. I see you, so thank you for the comment. What's up to you as well? So yeah, that was it for our show. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all the other platforms. I'll see you tomorrow, same time, as always, Mondays to Fridays. Check out our other content as well. Check out the shorts. So thank you so much for watching and listening, and see you again. Bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go